Yes, indeed. We appreciate everybody who's out here in War Report land today, talking a little Auburn football. Mike G had an opportunity to sit down with our guy Josh Pate
I did.
recently
I did.
and had a conversation come up with Josh about Auburn football over unders as the Vegas predictors have it for the season. And Josh, unlike last year, said he would take the Vegas under
Under.
this year
He did. He
for
did say that.
Auburn. Now the over under for Auburn is currently set at 7.5, which would mean that 7 or fewer wins, Josh Pate would be correct. If they get to 8 wins, then he would lose that bet. Mike G, let's talk about it a little bit. And I'll give you the choice. Do we want to take the sunshine portion of this first, or are we going to have the clouds befall the lie? and
Let's
or are
start
we
with the
gonna
sunshine. Let's start
Gonna
with the
give them the
sunshine.
sunshine
Yeah.
first and then have the rain
Let's
clouds
bump some.
come after the break? Is that what we're gonna do?
That's what we're gonna
All
do.
right. All right. So if you were a betting man, which Mike G every now and then is known to put a few chips down, and you got $100 to place a bet, tell the people 3 reasons why they should say buy stock in this Auburn team. They will eclipse 8 wins this season. 8 or more wins get you the over. How do you get there? And what are the reasons that it's going to happen this year for
I
you?
may surprise a lot of people with this first reason, but reason number one for me to take the over on Auburn, over 7.5 wins. Hear me out.
If you're saying this at the beginning, I kind of feel like where this is going to continue.
It's Payton Thorne.
I knew that's where that was going to land when you
Yes,
said, "Hear
yes.
me out."
Right.
Continue.
No,
Peyton
it's
Thorne
Payton
is
Thorne.
reason number
No,
one.
an improved Payton Thorne. So, in
Okay.
our interview with Hugh Freeze, he talked about Peyton sensing the alignment on the staff. Peyton himself, kind of pointed some things to me on camera and off camera that he felt like would be different this year. I think that the culmination of all that, Ike, is going to result in a much better Peyton Thorne in 2024. Now, we have talked ad nauseum on this channel about his regression from Michigan State to Auburn. It was way too large for that to be just all on Payton Thorne. Almost like he forgot how to play quarterback. That's not all on him. That was system, right? That was misalignment from the coaching staff. That it was just a lot of systemic things I think that held Payton Thorne back, along with the play calling debacle. So they fired Philip Montgomery. I'd have to think that he played a hand in how Payton Thorne's season turned out. And ultimately, when you look at what Payton Thorne should do as a floor, man, it's like 2,500 yards.
Right.
As a starter, I don't think he's thrown for less than 26 until he got to Auburn. So the Big Ten is a decent conference, man. It's not like they were playing nobodies. And he had an 11-2 season. So I look for Payton Thorne to move a little bit closer to that number than he was last year. But 1,700 yards, that can't happen again. that will not happen again.
That's abysmal. I don't ever want to see a season, not in this era of college football, where Auburn has a team that passes for a meager 1,700 yards, unless that team is also rushing for like 4,000 or 5,000. Like, you just got to give me some crazy numbers from your rushing in order for me to feel like 1,700 yards didn't equate to an absolutely abysmal offense. So yeah, we can't have that. So an improved Payton Thorne is reason number one why Auburn fans, or fans of betting, should say take the over.
Take the over. Now, again, last season was very unlikely. It was unlikely for a lot of reasons. Again, in our interview with Hugh Freeze, he talked about how Payton Thorne's pass attempts were the lowest of his career. He's never had a quarterback that passed the ball as few times last year as Payton Thorne did. Payton also had a record high rush attempts. And we're expecting a lot of those trends to reverse this year with the increase in talent at the wide receiver position, presumably. A healthy and engaged Jarquez Hunter from game one.
Mm-hmm.
And some other things that we expect to change. So, I think that, what happened last year was very anomalous for Payton Thorne. But I think that some of those things were out of his hands. All fans see on the field is the end result. But most of the time, there's no idea who was responsible for a play going south. I would venture to say that less of that was on Payton Thorne than a lot of his detractors might think. And it was tough, man. I think it was a hard conversation because everybody else was getting thrown under the bus. It felt like week after week, and the truth was, I've been always been harder on the coaching staff. That they were responsible for a lot of the mess that fans saw on the field. Now that they've got it together, I mean, because if you're Hugh Freeze, if you felt like it was going well from that standpoint, you don't fire your offensive coordinator, and you're not talking about all this alignment you feel like you have now.
That's true.
You
Yeah,
know,
all absolutely factual.
yeah, you're not talking about that if that wasn't a problem. It was a problem. Now, what percentage of the problem was it?
Up for debate.
Up for,
Yeah.
up for debate. I mean, if just take that 50-50 needle and slide it about 20% over to the staff. Now, talent is one thing. You obviously need dynamic talent. You do. But the talent on this roster was good enough to beat Alabama last year. They had enough talent to beat Alabama last year.
Yeah.
And talent didn't lose them the game. Scheme did. Play calling did. Right? Situational awareness and play calling cost them the game last year. You didn't lose to New Mexico State because of talent. You had enough talent to beat them. You hung in with Georgia, man. Like, they were pretty close. So, that's where I see this thing going for Hugh Freeze and company. I think that they really have to throw Peyton a bone back this year. I think that that's one of the reasons why, hear me out on this one too, that he was willing to stick with Payton Thorne for year two. Remember, everybody screamed at us and said, "Oh, there's no way we can have that again. You got to get a quarterback from the portal." And we're like, "No, they're probably not going after one." If you believe that you were a lot of the problem, why throw Payton under the bus and go pay top dollar for another portal QB? Because if you haven't fixed the system, that's a big ask to ask that guy to come in and rescue what you're doing wrong on the sidelines. So I think that when you look at the decision to stick with Payton Thorne from Hugh Freeze's first year to his second year, they're looking at it and they're like, "Hey, we got to help him out in multiple ways. We got to get this play calling thing right, and we got to put some better athletes around him." So I'm giving a huge vote of confidence for Payton Thorne. We've asked this question too. I'll end with this, and you can give your thoughts. Like, does he make it through the whole season as a starter? Does Hank Brown get a chance? I personally think that, barring injury, Payton Thorne finishes the season at least in the middle of the pack in the SEC in passing yards. I think he makes it through the whole season easily without, if he's healthy.
Yeah. The reason why I agree with you there is I don't know how poorly he'd have to play for Coach Freeze to pivot. Like, I've not seen a coach at Auburn say, "Man, this guy's playing so poorly that he will no longer be the starter for the remainder of the year." I've seen him pull a guy for a game and put somebody else in to finish that game, but I haven't seen them pivot completely, not in recent history, to a completely different quarterback solely based upon performance on the field. So until I see that on a consistent basis, I'm agreeing Payton Thorne's going to be the guy, because I can't, looking at the schedule, I can't imagine I don't want to, let me not say I can't. I don't want to imagine a world where Payton Thorne plays so poorly against Alabama A&M, Cal, and New Mexico that he's benched by the time they get to the Arkansas game. I just don't want to imagine that world.
Yeah,
because that is a very sad place to be in as an Auburn fan.
Yeah. The seat is hot at that point, right? Yeah. So I agree.
So yeah, for the sake of not wanting to get on here and blow an absolute gasket after one of those first 3 games, yes.
You're giving a vote for your own sanity. I dig that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Payton Thorne's improvement, reason number 1. And let's be clear, Payton Thorne's improvement is only a vote for confidence in Auburn making the over. Before people go absolutely ape on the take here, let me clarify or ask for clarity from Mike G. You're not saying Payton Thorne improves therefore Auburn makes the playoff or is a contending national title team. You're saying they can get to 7 wins with Payton Thorne playing a little bit better than he did last
Eight
year.
wins.
Excuse me, 8 wins.
Eight
Yeah.
wins. Yeah, yeah. Because the over under is 7.5.
Yeah, so
So
you can get to 8 wins with an improved Peyton Thorne. That's what we're talking about today. Not national title, not contending for a playoff spot, not winning the SEC. 8 wins.
8 wins. I think that's good improvement. I thought 7 would suffice as long as you win the right ones. You
I
can
mean, I
still.
think 7 is still a decent outcome for the season. To your point, as long as you get the correct win, like you win the games you're supposed to, right, and then you get one of the games maybe that you were kind of not necessarily supposed to win, but you weren't supposed to get blown out in it either, or you do pull off a crazy upset in one of those other wins, and the offense looks like it's taking the progression forward. I think that's good enough for this season for the purpose of Coach Freeze and his progression of the program.
Mm,
Agreed with that. All right. Let's get to number 2 here on your list. Peyton Thorne is number 1, the improvement of Peyton Thorne. What else gets Auburn to 8 wins this season? Remembering Auburn has not had more than 6 wins for the last few seasons.
yeah, that's a sad stat. That's a really sad stat. I
Yeah.
think reason number 2, you should take the over on Auburn in 2024 is the schedule.
Okay.
The schedule is as favorable to a hot start to the season as they could have hoped for.
Okay.
So you get to get some momentum going. Now, who do they play? Well, they start off with Alabama A&M. I think we all agree win. Uh, Cal, as we stand right now, that's a win. I'm telling you, that's a win. Anything less than a win, if you allow Cal to you went out west and you beat them. Now you didn't beat them convincingly, but you
No.
you played one of your worst games and still won.
Pause on that
Okay.
because I have been going back and watching a lot of our games from last season just because I'm doing some film review stuff. I forgot how many field goals Cal missed in that game.
Oh,
Good God, that field goal kicker absolutely gifted Auburn that game by his inability to make a freaking field goal.
yeah.
But anyway, continue.
But that's a game you should win. Your defense played well in that game. And you know, Damari got hurt, right? It was Jarquez's first game back. And we got a spy. We got Sam Jackson. So
Yeah.
all the trade secrets on Auburn's sideline this year. So that's a game you should win. That's 2-0 to start the season. An easy 2-0. Then you got New Mexico. So we're playing their brethren in the state. Just drop the state off, and that's the school you got. You got New Mexico coming to Jordan. No G5 losses this year. I'm going to go ahead and
Right.
say no G5 losses this year. So
Again, for the sake of my sanity, I'm right there with you.
yeah, so we'll go 3-0 there. Then you get Arkansas. You get your first SEC test in game 4. I believe this to be a win. I do. Look, man, Arkansas, they're having some struggles up there. Shout out to our guy, T. Will. I know he's doing what he can up there, but I don't see that being a loss by any stretch of the imagination. Then you get to game 5, and it's, Josh Payton and I talked about this. This might not be on anybody's marquee, but this has the opportunity to be an epic game. Oklahoma comes to the Plains for the first time in the history of college football. And I think that Auburn can win this game. But what does the offense look like going into this game? Ideally, if you're Hugh Freeze, you haven't shown too much in the first 4 games. You haven't they should know what this offense really is at this point. So, if you've got it rolling and Peyton Thorne is still your quarterback, by this game, I like Auburn's chances to take this thing into the fourth quarter, and then tie goes to the home team win. So potentially, I don't know any reasonable person would, based on what they did last year and with the improvement in talent around them at certain positions, would argue that 5-0 is possible in that start. After that, you got to get 3 more games.
Yeah.
That's it. And
you still have a
and
cupcake
you got
Vandy on the
Vandy is
back
on the
half of the season.
schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Vandy is on the schedule. La Monroe is on the schedule. So I think that's a good reason to take it. If they start 5-0 and they just got to get 3 more, because listen, it's going to be if they don't get 3 more, it's going to be a really piss poor sad end to the season. Think
Yeah.
about this, right? If they only win 2 more
It's gonna
games,
feel like Carson year 1.
yeah, it's going to be an epic collapse. Now, is that possible? Well, certainly. After Oklahoma, you got to go to Athens, you have to go to Missouri, you have to go to Kentucky, and that's a month-long stretch, essentially, because there's a bye week in there between Georgia and Missouri.
Mhm.
So you don't play at home for a month in those 3 games. Adding in the bye week, but you have a chance to regroup before you go to Columbia. So I've said this, right? In this stretch that starts at Georgia, right? Well, it starts at Oklahoma and ends at Kentucky. If Auburn gets 2 of these games, if you can find a way to beat Oklahoma and Kentucky, maybe you lose to Georgia, Missouri. I think, most experts would favor those 2 teams in their house, right? Get Oklahoma and Kentucky, and you've got a chance to do something, to have a special, special Iron Bowl going to Tuscaloosa that year. So I like the odds of an 8 win. I was on record earlier this year saying that I thought maybe the ceiling was 7 wins,
Mhm.
right? With some of the optimism that's been injected into my veins by the players themselves, I think, okay, I'll move that needle to 8. Now, there are always those who think, oh, it's 10 wins, guys, and I'm just not there. I'm not there because the road stretch is difficult. You got Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, and Bama all on the road. You lose those 4 games, you're not. That's 8. You
Right.
got, and you have to win the rest. And there's some. I mean, there's no guarantee they beat A&M. Not right now. I'd like to think that they win that game, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that they beat Oklahoma. It's going to be one of those things where if they get it moved the right direction, I see 8 wins. And look, man, the schedule it's still tough because it's an SEC schedule, but 8 home games this year, man, it's doable. 8 is doable, and that's why I would take the over because of the schedule.
Okay. So number 1, the improvement of Payton Thorne. Number 2, Auburn's schedule sets up favorably to be able
That
to do
does.
it. Number 3 reason why Mike G says take the over for Auburn this season. What you got?
The number 3 reason you should take the over on Auburn is Cam Coleman.
Okay.
Well, we've talked about this ad nauseum as well too. He's going to play from game 1.
For sure.
He's going to be a starter. When they roll out there against A&M, it's going to be the Cam Coleman show, right? So I'm going to combine 2 of these, right? Cam Coleman and Hugh Freeze calling plays for Cam Coleman.
Okay.
They're going to the pass attempts. Again, we covered this when we talked about Payton Thorne. Have to go up. One of the reasons they'll go up is because the targets at Coleman, the volume has to be there. It has to. You went out and you got the best wide receiver haul in the country.
Mhm.
So if we are to believe that the receivers were the problem this whole time, if they were that bad, it doesn't matter that he's a freshman. He should be better than anything you have because you told the whole world week after week we need receivers with catch radius. Cam Coleman is that, and we saw that on display during A-Day. He went out there on A-Day and like anybody who had a chance to throw Cam Coleman the ball took it. We saw him catch good passes. We saw him catch underthrown passes. This is exactly what Hugh Freeze. He said, I need a receiver that can bail my quarterback out here and there.
He did.
Oh, that's your guy. If he underperforms, it's on you. There's no way. I refuse to listen to any Cam Coleman is a bust talk. I'm not hearing it, Isaac. I'm not hearing any Cam Coleman is this and that. No. Top 5 player in all of high school football. It's time for Auburn to start putting those top 50 players into the NFL draft. There's no reason Cam Coleman shouldn't be a day 1 pick in the NFL draft. That's how good he And I think that he's so good at going up and getting the ball. The only way he doesn't get his is if you don't throw it at him. They're going to do that. Now, we talked about Lambert Smith. What did he have, like 80 something targets last year?
Right.
Right? Rivaldo Fairweather only had 53 catches. I mean, targets.
Right. I was about to say Lambert Smith had 53 catches.
Yeah, he had 53 catches. Yeah.
Equivalent to how many targets?
Targets.
Right.
The most targeted person got.
Right.
Jay Fair had even less than that, and he was the most targeted actual receiver. You can't play Cam Coleman that way. You have to take your shots at him. You have to give him, a chance to catch the ball at least 5 to 6 times a game. 5 to 6 targets a game. And that might be underselling it a little bit. I'm just saying that's the absolute floor. But it probably should be closer to 8. In a 12-game schedule, it should be closer to 8 to 9 targets a game. 8 targets a game, that's, 96 targets on the season. That's reasonable for a guy you expect to be a number 1 receiver, an all SEC performer in this league. Go back and look at Luther Burden's targets, right? Go back and look at Malik Neighbors' targets last year. Look at Trey Harris's targets. All those guys were well north of 80 targets. Auburn has to get back to that. So if we get what I said in reason number 1, an improved Payton Thorne, you're going to see more trust in him to make those passes, and they're going to have to call those plays. And I think that's where Hugh Freeze fits into this. Better play calling, and Cam Coleman is going to equal the over on Auburn. Hear me out.
Okay.
Yeah, right. If you think Cam Coleman is good for maybe a touchdown, plus 4 to 6 points a game or 3 to 6 points a game, you beat Alabama. You probably don't lose to New Mexico State. His presence alone, if they use him correctly, might be worth plus 2 wins over what you did last year. Payton Thorne and Cam Coleman, the improved Payton Thorne and Cam Coleman could be the difference in winning a close one or losing a close one. Now, going into Tuscaloosa and winning, they haven't done that since the Cam back, right? That's going to be a tall task. But I think Auburn, nobody's scared to go to Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, they haven't built that mystique.
Yeah. Nobody's scared to go to Columbia, Missouri. Like, if there were a big game on the schedule that I think that Auburn could win on the road, it's that one. Kentucky might be a harder place to play. So I like Cam Coleman, and I think it won't be him alone. So some of the other young guys are going to get a shot. I think Perry Thompson is going to get a shot this year to show what he can do.
For sure.
Right. And I think Robert Lewis is going to have an impact on this one as well, too. But I think it starts with Cam Coleman. I think that the attention that he will garner from defenses will open up opportunities for everybody else. And if you have him on the field, even as a decoy, he's so valuable to your production. And it's going to be worth a win or two in 2024. So Cam Coleman, man, and Hugh Freeze calling plays for Cam Coleman.
All right. So for Mike G, the improvement of Payton Thorne year over year, the way the schedule sets up, and the play calling Hugh Freeze will initiate for one Cam Coleman as a difference maker on the offense. Reasons why, if you're betting this year, take the over for Auburn. For full episodes, check out the Midweek Report, going live on the War Report's YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time Wednesday nights. Until the next time, War Eagle.